Hi, everyone. So today I'm talking about how our fears can really paralyze us. One thing that I've learned working with patients and clients over the last 20 years is that more times than not, our fears are much worse than reality. So, in terms of what we fear is going to happen, chances are it's not going to happen. But more importantly, even if it did happen, our fears make the experience much worse than it is. Some people have social anxiety, they fear rejection. So, let's say you're asking someone on a date and they reject you. Quite often, people with social anxiety will build this up to be the most awful, horrible experience in the world, when in reality, it may be uncomfortable and it may not feel great, but it's not that bad. And I find that this approach is far better than trying to convince yourself that um, you know, it's probably not going to happen, whatever you fear, right? Because it could happen. And our fears and anxiety always like to go towards the tail end uh, in terms of low probability events, right? If there's a probability that something can happen, even if it's a 1% chance, and we have a lot of anxiety and fears, that's what we'll focus on. We'll only feel totally reassured and okay if somebody proves to us that there's absolutely zero chance of it happening. So, what are our fears when it comes to going on a weight loss plan? The obvious one, right? Which is we're going to fail. Now, you could sit there and you could make a great case for why this time will be different. You listen to me, you devised an eating plan, an exercise plan that you really feel is not going to be that difficult, is not going to lead to too much discomfort, and is going to be generally easy to follow. You've really set yourself up well. You have reasonable goals. You're looking at losing maybe about 1 pound a week and maybe even two. Um, and you also have built into this plan some breaks, as we talked about yesterday, where you're going to like stop on the mountaintop and look around and say, oh, this is great. Look at the view up here. The view being 20 pounds less, 30 pounds less, 10 pounds less. So even setting yourself for a great plan, or with a great plan that really looks like this time is going to be different. You're not doing a fad or a crash diet. You're not doing a diet at all. You're making lifestyle changes. You're starting off small. Maybe you're only doing a couple of lifestyle changes, and you're beginning to assess yourself every week and getting into the habit of that. Maybe you're starting off really small, but yet the fear is that you could still fail. So rather than trying to convince you that you probably won't fail, because I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, like, what makes this time different? Yeah, okay, I changed my goals and I made a better plan and all this other stuff. But my history shows time and time again that I fail. Well, we have to address that fear, because that fear is going to get in the way of you starting any plan. And that fear is also going to get in the way of you sticking with the plan. So it needs to be addressed. And the best way to address it is to say, hey, you know what? Even if it's a low probability this time, because I set myself up the right way for success, I could still fail. And so what's the worst thing about that? I failed in the past. I failed many times in the past. What's the worst thing about that? Yeah, I'll fail. And I'll feel kind of crappy about it. But it doesn't essentially change anything, because all that will happen is I'll go back to living the way I've been living. Now, granted, you may not like the way you've been living. You may not like your life right now. You may be very upset with your current state of affairs. So there's another twist to this. If you fail this time, you cannot then make the generalization that you will keep failing and you will never be successful. There are many, many successful people who have failed many, many times and eventually, because of their persistence, have been super successful. There's been movies made about them. Sylvester Stallone even talked about how he was rejected, like, I think like 100 times or something, but some obscene amount of times that he was rejected for movie roles until he got his big breakthrough in Rocky. And now he's a superstar. So, you know, just because you failed 10 times, 20 times, 30 times doesn't mean you're always going to fail. Albert Ellis, who was a famous psychologist who created rational emotive behavior therapy, he famously did an experiment because he himself suffered from social anxiety. And so he famously did this experiment where he sat on a park bench, I think it was Central Park in New York City, and every woman that walked by, he asked them out on a date. Now, even if you're a really attractive person, you're going to get a lot of rejection doing that because you're literally just cold calling and asking, strangers, on a date that know nothing about you whatsoever. The reason why he did this wasn't so that he could get a date. The reason he did this was so that he could expunge this social anxiety or this fear of rejection. Because according to his theory, at a certain point, when you have the experience that you fear so much, and it happens a number of times over and over again, you become desensitized to it. And that's exactly what happened. He laughed and said, by the 20th or 30th rejection, he was like numb to it. It's like, and lo and behold, there were some yes answers. But that's not what he was looking for. He was looking for getting desensitized. Why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up to show you that the actual situation that you fear is really not that bad. It's really what you make it out to be. So if you fail on a weight loss plan, how should you react? You should react back to the drawing board. It didn't work this time. In fact, I wouldn't even use the word failure because neurolinguistics has taught us that some words are so loaded, we really should avoid them. Use the phraseology, it didn't work out this time. It didn't work out this time. Why is that so much better? Because if it didn't work out this time, it's got the connotation that it could very well work out the next time, or the time after that, or the time after that. And it's a very positive way of framing it because it really does fit with reality. It just simply didn't work this time. Meaning that with some tweaks and with some reinventing of a new weight loss plan, it very well could work out. And in fact, if every time it doesn't work out, you learn something about why it didn't work out, that only increases your chances of success. And that's how people in any endeavor in life become super successful. It's persistence, but it's not just persistence. It's also learning from each failure, learning from each time that it didn't work out. I'm sure Sylvester Stallone learned how to do these rehearsals in a better way, maybe how to schmooze a little bit more, how to present himself in a better way for these auditions so that he finally was successful for that one. Or maybe it was just probability. Either or, right? If you're playing the probability game, the more times you're in it, right? The more times you try a weight loss plan, the more chance there is for it to be successful. As long as it's well thought out and it's a plan that you really think does have a good chance of succeeding. And like I said, every time it doesn't work out for you just means that there's something to be learned to apply to the next plan. And then the next plan, you will have a very good chance of it working out. The most important thing, that the mantra of this is, don't give up. Don't give up, and don't believe your fears. Your fears tell you it's going to be so bad. Like, that's the whole thing with failure for people that are very nervous about it or anxious about it. It's what it means to them. If it was just like, I failed this time, okay, back to the drawing board, it wouldn't have a devastating effect on you. But you don't say that, do you? When you fail, you say things like I used to say, this is proof that I can't do it. I'm not built to be thin, or I'm not built to have a healthy size and shape. I'm not made to be of a person with a healthy weight. I'm not made to be able to lose that kind of weight and maintain it. Maybe it's physical, maybe it's psychological. I don't know, but I'm just not made that way. It's never going to happen to me. I don't have the willpower. I don't have the motivation. I don't have it in me. My lifestyle is not conducive to losing weight and maintaining it. Whatever you tell yourself, but I'm sure what you tell yourself when the weight loss plan doesn't work is what a failure you are. Now, that's a big difference, right? I failed this time around. This time around, the weight loss plan didn't work out for me, as opposed to I am a failure. I am a failure means like there's something, inherently flawed with you. We all have flaws, right? But we're not a complete flaw in and by ourselves, right? We have strengths, we have weaknesses, we have flaws, sure. But we are not 100% flawed. We are not just this flaw or this error, right? And a lot of times we take too much responsibility for when a weight loss plan works, especially when it's somebody else's. How many times do you follow a friend's plan or a famous diet guru's plan or a famous crash diet plan or famous diet or whatever, and you say, oh, it didn't work out, I failed, there's something wrong with me. And meanwhile, you didn't even create the diet. You followed somebody else's. So first off, you can't blame yourself that much for another person's plan that you followed that didn't work out, because it's very well the case that it wasn't the right plan for you. And if you create a plan and it doesn't work out, it just simply means that that plan wasn't the right one. So stop taking so much responsibility when things don't work out. If you can face your fears and not let them paralyze you, you will be committed and go all in. And here's the other insidious effect of fears. Even when fears don't prevent us from doing the thing, quite often what they'll do is they'll really limit our efforts. So in other words, what we do is we expect to fail. We're still going to do the plan, kind of, sort of, but we're going to do it in a way that gives us an out. So in other words, if it doesn't, because here's the whole thing, we're so worried about failing because of the impact it will have on us, our self perception and everything else, or our self-esteem. I mean, we're so fearful of that we need to give ourselves an out. So we do a plan, but we don't really follow it well, right? Or we don't go all in. We just kind of like dip our toe in the water, so to speak. and then it doesn't work out. And then it's almost like the self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Then we're like, oh, I know I'd fail. Well, what's so good about that, right? Like, why did we kind of half-ass it? Because in the back of our mind, we can tell ourselves, I did fail, but don't be so hard on yourself because, you didn't really give it your all. So we don't really know what would have happened if we gave it our all. And then you got to wonder, well, why didn't we give it our all? That sounds ridiculous because we wanted the out. But having the out made us fail anyway. So wouldn't it be better to give it 100% effort to see if it really could work? It would be from a rational perspective if we weren't so fearful of failing. Because we're so fearful of failing, we cater to that need. There are two needs. One, fear of failure and the ramifications on our self-esteem and self-concept and everything else. There's that fear, okay? And that's a need to protect ourselves. But then we also have the need to really lose the weight. So the problem is we cater to this need over this one. We're more worried about failing and what that's going to do to us emotionally than we are about trying to actually lose the weight and give it an old college try. What I suggest is you really work on reconciling this fear of failure and you come to grips with it and you look at it as it's not failing, it's simply not working out this time, rewording that and not taking it so personally, like it's all about you, because it very well could have a lot to do with the plan. And the only time it has everything to do with you is if you don't give it a full effort, then that's all on you. So if you think you're protecting yourself, you're doing the opposite because you can't really fool yourself that well. Deep down inside, you're going to know that you didn't give it your all. And that is on you. At least if you give it your all, then you have the benefit of being able to say, I gave it my all, so it can't be all me. It's got to be partially the plan. We don't want this thinking to sabotage our efforts. Psychology is so involved with weight loss. And I know, at the risk of being redundant, that this is something that I say time and time again, but it's something I truly believe. And I hope that I've been able to present this information in so many forms and fashions that it really starts to resonate with you. And you really start to say, hey, you know what? Psychology really does have just about everything to do with weight loss. Don't give yourself an out and don't be so fearful of failing. Commit. Make an announcement, tell your family, tell your friends, put it on your Facebook page and say, I am going to do a weight loss plan and give it my all. Don't give yourself an out. Unfortunately, there are a lot of things that we can do in life where there's an out. There are very few things where once you start, you can't stop. There's no out. And I wish that this was like that, where we couldn't give ourselves an out because, it causes so much issues having an out, right? When you get on a roller coaster and that bar comes down, right? It's scary because you have no out. That's it. You're in for the ride. Whether you like it or not, you've made the decision. And once that roller coaster harness comes down and you start going, you're in for the ride. And there is no out. And in some ways, I think it would be better if our weight loss plans were like that. But to make it like that, we have to make it so uncomfortable for us to take the out. So if you tell as many people as you can that you're starting this weight loss plan, it's going to be hard to do that out. I'll give you another example. I told you all that I used to do Muay Thai kickboxing. One day I'm going to get back to it. My first Muay Thai class, I was in the class and there I am in front of all these other people. And we start and we're throwing punches and kicking and everything else, and a little anxiety provoking doing this in front of all these other seasoned Muay Thai practitioners, and not knowing what the heck I'm doing really. And the workout was intense and I didn't know if I could last. And I had a thought the first 5 or 10 minutes of class, like, I don't know about this. This is too much. I think I'm just going to take off. But then I thought to myself, I just walk out of class right now. You know how embarrassing that's going to be? And the coach is going to say something because my first class, so he's trying to cater to me and spend more time with me, give me more attention, let me know like how to do a proper kick and punch and everything else. So he's definitely going to see me leave and he's going to notice it. I'm a new student. He knows that that's my first class. He's paying extra attention to me. And then all these students are going to just watch me walk out. Not to mention that when you do Muay Thai training, you work with a partner. So what am I going to do? I mean, in terms of my partner, say, hey, buddy, I'm sorry, this isn't for me. I'm taking off, or I don't think I can do it. I'm out of here. The fear of walking out in the middle of the class and letting down my partner and having people look at me like, what the heck is going on with that guy, was outweighing my fear of whether or not I could continue in the class. And that was great because it meant I wasn't going to back out. And thank God I didn't, because I loved that sport and had an amazing several years doing it. And I will get back to it one day. When I work with people, whether it be clients looking to lose weight or patients of mine that were trying to overcome severe addiction problems, many of the times when they were making great progress, they would come to their session or their coaching call and they'd say, Dr. Fields, I didn't think I was going to make good progress this week, but you know what kept me going? I was fearful of facing you and confronting you and telling you that I didn't do any of the things that you told me I should do or that we discussed. And I didn't make any progress. I was fearful of that. I was fearful of, not sticking to the plan and staying committed this week. Now, although that sounds nice to me, that I can be a source of motivation for my clients and patients because they feel like, they have to confront me, at the end of the week or something like that. I don't buy it so much because at the end of the day, what they really feared is having to confront themselves. I'm merely a mirror, right? Like, I'm not saying that giving them any crap that they didn't make progress. My approach would always be like, okay, let's go back to the drawing board. Let's see what we have to work on, this and that. It's not like I'm this scary ogre or anything like that. So what were they really fearful of? Well, they were really fearful because they knew that I would not buy into any not so good excuses, or that I would call them out gently, but call them out and say like, yeah, don't you think you could have done that or this, and don't you think maybe your effort waned a little bit? And does that sound harsh? Absolutely not. But what's harsh is they don't have the luxury of being in denial. There's somebody there that keeps them accountable. And that's how weight loss coaching or consulting, which is what I do, works to a large extent. It keeps you accountable. It's a situation where it's not easy to kind of give yourself an out. And then, of course, you got to pay money for this. So who the heck wants to waste money and not make the progress they need to? Sometimes that's a big part of it too. Like, it's an investment, not just money, but time. It's investment in money, it's investment in time. There's this person that I have to basically, confront and tell them that I didn't do what I was supposed to do. All these things, the person then becomes more fearful of dealing with losing or wasting time, losing or wasting money, having to get called out for not doing what you should do and not feeling so great about that because you know that it's right, that becomes more fearful than failing. Bottom line, whatever you have to do to make yourself less likely to give yourself an out, whether it be set up the environment in a certain way by having somebody that's going to keep you accountable, hiring someone that's going to keep you accountable rather, or announcing it to as many people as you can, and or fixing that faulty thought process that exaggerates how devastating a failure is going to be, and using neurolinguistics to change the language and call it more of like either a setback or what I would really rather call it didn't work out this time. With Dr. Fields, this is Dr. Fields with something to think about. I'll talk to you soon.